Hi. A lot of our customers have asked us, how do you get your concrete to the next level? Meaning with our System 1 admixes with wet cast, you'll be making about 8,000 PSI concrete if you follow our instructions. Well, they want to know, well, how do I make 10 or 12,000? Well, it's easy. You just need to do a few things a little bit differently. Today I'm going to show you how to make 1 cubic foot of ultra high performance concrete. Now this is going to be about, if you do what we tell you, probably about 12,000 PSI, maybe a little higher. You start out with the basic 1 cubic foot recipe, which is 38 pounds cementitious. Now out of that 38 pounds cementitious, I'm going to use 32 pounds of Portland plus 6 pounds of slag. Slag is a pozzolan. If you research pozzolans, you'll find out what they do and how they work. You can use slag, silica fume, there's any number of them that'll work. Then I'm going to go with 50 pounds stone. For stone, I'm going to use pea gravel in our samples we're making. 3/8 pea gravel. And that conforms to ASTM C33. It doesn't have to, but if it does conform to that, you'll know it has a range of sizes, so it gets better particle packing. Then I'm going to go with 50 pounds of sand. Here again, it's going to conform to ASTM C33. This is the specification for concrete sand. You don't have to use sand that meets that specification, but if you do, here again, it'll have a range of sizes. 3/8, it'll have very few 3/8, but it'll have down to 200 mesh, very few of that. It'll fill in within specifications all these things. That gives you better particle packing. If you were to use mason sand, it may be too fine. It may cause problems with a wet cast mix. Here's a closer look at the materials we'll be using. This is the sand. Now you can see it, say, well, look at those big particles. Well, that's part of it. That's part of the constituents of concrete sand. It has large down to very fine. It actually gives you better particle packing. It makes better use of the cement than all fine sand. This is the stone. Here again, it came from the local quarry. It's got up to 3/8 inch. There's also got a bunch of smaller ones. Same idea there. They're going to fit between each other. You can use what's known as gap graded aggregate, meaning they would all be almost this size if you were going for that look. But I would probably avoid mason sand and wet cast because it's super fine, too fine for wet cast really, and this will look fine. Now you can alter your mix design and use whatever sand you want, but be prepared to alter a little bit and adjust rather than thinking it's going to work the first time. Then for water, we want to take 0.38, we want to pour it about we're going to try to get down to 0.26, 0.28 water to cement ratio. Maybe that's more realistic, 0.28. So we take 38 times 0.28. It's about 10.5, 10.6 total water. If you use less, that's great. If you use more, well, you're not going to hit your desired 12,000 PSI plus. So 0.28, 0.26, getting lower than that is really hard to do. But this will get you somewhere in that neighborhood. That's total water, meaning you have to add or subtract from this total if you have water in your sand. Plus this isn't written in stone. In the end, you need something that's going to pour, consolidate, vibrate. That's important too. Now for the admix, we're going to use System 1 wet cast admix, but we're going to go all the way to 4.5% of the cement weight. So if we take 38 times 4.5%, we end up with 1.7 pounds in our cubic foot example. Now, to up the strength even more, we're going to add a colloidal silica. The colloidal silica has, it's 99.9% pure silica. The particle size is 1,000 times or more smaller than slag. So it becomes almost instantly reactive, and it fits between the cement grains, and it acts as an accelerator for slag mixes. Lots of people say when you use a pozzolan, you give up short-term strength. You do, but there's things you can do to not give up short-term strength and to increase long-term strength. We're going to use 2% of a cement weight. If we were using 100 pounds, we'd use 2 pounds of liquid. We have this liquid on our website. Call us if you have any questions about it. So 38 times 2%. 2%. So, colloidal silica, we're going to use 0.76 liquid pounds. Our colloidal silica is a 50% solids product, so we're going to use half of that, really would be. If you go more than 2%, it starts to have almost too much of an effect on your mix. You can try it, and if you went 3%, if you went 5%, lower this down, then you're up in the 15,000 PSI range. So you can work your way up there if that's what your goal is. The reason sometimes this is important because our sealers are non-topical. So they're starting to rely more and more on the concrete. If you get your concrete dense enough with our System 1 SB sealer, you don't need to densify it or use anything under it. That's rare unless you're up in the 15,000 PSI range. But as you make better concrete, you're going to have less problems. This will be our mix, and we'll batch it in a rotary mixer. You'll see over there a little 4-yard capacity. We can mix 2 at a time, so 1 cubic foot will mix quite nicely. Another question we get asked a lot is, how do you know how much to batch to fill the forms you have to fill? Well, that's pretty easy. We just showed you how to make about a cubic foot. It's not a perfect cubic foot, but it's close. So you know how to make 12, 12, 12. That's a cubic foot. These are decimal feet. So decimal feet divided by 12, 1 all the way around. Multiply that out, you've got cubic foot. Same thing with your pieces. They have 3 dimensions. If this is 75 inches or 55 inches, this is 26 inches. This is 1.5 inches or 1.5 inches. Get everything into decimal feet. 5 by 12. 4.58. 26. 2.17. 1.5 is 125, right? 0.125. 12.125. So I have everything in the decimal feet, multiply them together. 4.58 times 2.17 times 1.125.
And pretty much whatever's in John Morgan said. 99.thewhale.com.
1.24. So I've got 1.42 1.24 cubic feet is required to fill this. Well, obviously, if I had to batch this, I would add probably 5%. But then just take your values, your 1 cubic foot values, 50/50, multiply them by the 1.24 plus 5% if you want to. And then you get your batch totals. You can write a simple spreadsheet to do it, but it's almost as quick just to do the math. I've got all my materials weighed out: sandstone, cement, slag, admix, colloidal silica, and water. The water I weighed out 80% because I want to hold back some just in case. People make a big deal out of how you load your mixer. You really don't have to worry. If you've got a decent mixer with good mixing action, what we did with our admixtures is we added a dispersing agent. What that dispersing agent does is it helps separate the cement and helps stop clumping. It's common. You can even mix a back coat GFRC in here with our admix. First thing I'll usually do is put the stone in first. As a general rule, you don't want the cementitious to go to the back of the drum and stick. And I will load sand. You can see you don't need to spin it up. You can if that makes you happy. Whatever you want to do, but you don't need to. Next, I'll tip it up. Add the cement mixed with the slag. That way it's not going and sticking in the back of my drum. While I got it tipped up, I'll add the water. Now what I am going to do, I'm going to put the colloidal silica in the water rather than dumping the colloidal silica right in there. Be careful with your colloidal silica. Do not overdose it. You don't need any more. And it will affect your rheology. I'll put the admixtures in. Now, 80% of the water, along with the colloidal silica. Then I'll shut it. Shut it, let it mix until it's dust free. Probably about 2 or 3 minutes. In about 3 minutes, you can see it's balled up. That's okay, don't worry about it. Your concrete will go through 3 distinct phases. The first will be wet out, where the material will wet out. The next will be what I call the balling stage. The good news is, once it gets to the balling stage, it's not far till it turns and goes with the self-consolidating stage. Nothing's really stuck to the drum terribly. Now you can add water a little at a time. I'm pretty good at doing this for 30 years. So I don't mind adding it with the hose. I know we're not far. Once it stops falling, all of a sudden it's going to start laying out. It'll happen quick. Just by looking in there, I can see the balls stopped. See what happened instantly? There's still balls, but continuous mixing is going to break them up and incorporate all the free water. We don't need any more, no more water. In the end, you want your mix to spread out, but you don't want the rocks to sink. If the rocks are sinking, it's too wet. Here you can see my rocks are staying up top. And it's still got some more mixing. Getting there. The rocks are still up top. I would say a little more mixing. It's a very nice looking self-consolidating mix. If you've never mixed it before, it takes a little bit to get used to, but if you force your hand into it, your hand stays up top. It's almost like that trick where someone walks across cornstarch, but if you push slowly it sinks in, because there's hardly any water in it. You can see my stones are up top. One of the keys is when you shut it off, it should self-level just about in the mixer. The stones should not sink out of sight. You can see I still have stones up top, which is good. You don't want the stones to totally disappear. It'll look different than any concrete you've ever seen. You can see I can make a ball as long as I keep that ball moving, because there's hardly any water. It's all chemicals. This is a true self-consolidating mix. If you have vibrators, you could stop and not make it quite this wet.